Jenny's going to talk to you about...
Yeah, it's actually taking action and helping us collecting data. I do want to just take one step back on the document here. It's more than a document. This is a big step. Just thinking back to when I was the director of a child care center, to know that we are connecting with the public schools that we're feeding into, which for many of us is way more than just one public school, is a huge step for us. I know some of you have taken initiative on your own to maybe make contact, but in the past, whether this is true or not, we didn't always feel valued in the process of children and as a part of the education system. And now we have the opportunity to not only be a valued part of it, but also to set up relationships that I know have a lot of any of those unintentional things that will come from it. Relationships with Rita and her kindergarten teachers, where will that lead? Where will that lead your program and her program? I think those are the things that I think are most exciting about this process. We already know the document. We know that it's going to start connecting child care staff. And that's not just directors. And I know not all of you here are directors. But not just the leadership in your program, but the actual teachers of the classroom, making a connection with kindergarten teachers. And some of the things that we did list on the bottom of the sheet were ideas on how we can look at establishing relationships beyond just attending these meetings. I do want to say about these meetings, I don't want you to take these meetings, because every time we hear about meetings, we're like, oh. And they are, a lot of times. But I think this is your opportunity to really get in and start developing relationships. And that is the core of this project. It's not the data. The data is something we need to move forward. It's about those relationships and moving forward. But some of the ideas on the bottom were to introduce yourself to the principal and kindergarten teacher, of course, at one of these meetings. Invite the kindergarten teachers to your program in the spring. Maybe even having field trips, which I know many of you already do this, where you take the children to kindergarten so they can see the classroom, maybe play around with some of the stuff, kind of get a comfort level. And then set up a parent night and invite that school principal or kindergarten teacher that feeds into your program to your parent night to actually introduce them, allow parents to ask questions if they want to, really kind of breaking down the barriers that often make this transition a tough one. Well, a way for you to help us out in this process is actually twofold. The first is, and it's in your packet, it is the Traveling to Kindergarten document. It's a pilot mutual agreement. Now, I know we actually haggled with the wording because we didn't want this to sound like some kind of legal document. This is not a memorandum of understanding, so I don't want anyone frightened about the document. The idea behind this document is mostly data. We want to know who you are if you are participating in this project. What gets really difficult is when one of these things show up at Rita's school and we have to try and backtrack where the child came from to actually find out who participated to help with the data collection. So for us, the big part of this is finding out who you are, finding out that pertinent information, including the email address, which Michelle mentioned before, is kind of it's almost something we should have starred on here, because it will turn into the most important piece in terms of communication. And you need the communication to build any relationships. Just below that demographic type information is the kindergarten pilot sites, and we have contact names for each of the school districts. These are the folks that when you don't know an answer, so some of the things that Michelle was pointing out, the building, when is registration, any of the questions that are going to be coming up now that the parents are going to hear about this process, these are the folks that you can contact to make those connections. Who might this child, when they come into your system, who are the teachers, so that they can kind of get a sense of that information. Just below that, we kind of go into that participating in this project, that you understand the criteria that need to be addressed. The first one is we want to make sure that you are signing off, filling this in, and signing off that you are going to participate. This isn't just child care centers. Many of you here are family child care providers. You are an integral part of this entire system. The system has to work together to move this forward. There's a place for you to mail that, to fax it, or to email your document. You do have the option today, before you go, to go ahead and complete this document, sign off on it if you're able, and leave it here as well. I know sometimes when we walk away from a meeting like this and all the information that's being shared, this gets put into the pile and gets forgotten about. So if you're able to do that today before you leave, we'll definitely take it for you and make sure that that gets given to Amy, who is the email person for Reach Higher. The second is to ensure involved staff will obtain necessary knowledge and make appropriate connections with the pilot school. We aren't requiring, but I will tell you, we are, as nicely as we possibly can, pushing you to attend the 3 meetings on your next step flyer. It is going to be the first step in moving this forward. Relationships don't get formed by good intentions. And we've got lots and lots of good intentions here, but unless folks are taking action, it's not going to go anywhere. And we all know it's needed and necessary, not for ourselves, not for the school districts, but for the families and the children that are actually making these transitions. The final is, well, not the final, complete the traveling to kindergarten document with the parent or guardian for each child in the pilot prior to receiving kindergarten registration. So as Michelle mentioned, identifying children transitioning, and depending on what dates we're looking at, it could be pretty soon that you want to get on that. Secondly is make a copy of the document for the child care or your programs file. We love our parents, but the minute you hand off this document with all that lovely stuff that you put inside of it, the comments, the artwork, the writing samples, you put a lot of effort into getting this document out. You're going to hand it off to the parents to take to registration. And they're going to try really hard to take it to registration. But they may or may not get it there. And what we want to make sure is if you've gone through the process of finishing this document and you've scanned it or you've copied it or you've done what you needed to, that there can be a connection made after the fact to say, would you happen to have a document on this child? Rita could call your center and say, listen, we didn't get one from this child, we have some questions, would you be able to help us? So certainly that is going to be a huge part of this process, more of a checks and balance, because we know every parent is going to take it to kindergarten registration. And then the final step in the process for us, given that this is a pilot and we're in the second year of the pilot, is going to be the survey. Now we'll make the survey very easy for you. It'll probably come via your email, and it'll be a Survey Monkey for those of you that are familiar with that survey tool. It'll be a quick online survey, but I encourage each and every one of you to complete the survey. If it's not you, and you're the director of the center, and you didn't really get into the meat of the document, pass that along or get input from the teacher that actually dealt with the document, dealt with the family, and then of course dealt with the school system. We really, really want honest and some good, strong feedback for us as we try to open this up to Lorain County as a whole, not just the 4 school districts.
Which is our next goal.
Yes.
If it goes well this year, your office, help us out with this, and next year would be to do throughout the whole county. And we'll probably be one of the first counties that have something very formal like this. So we will be a leader, and there are 12 other councils.
20 in the state. Yeah.
So, and they look to each other, they meet, and we look to each other to say, what did you do, and that's innovative, and what is really working. So, it could be someone